this clinic is going to be aimed at telling you pretty much exactly what's going to be on the exam. And the way I see it is, I want you guys to pass this exam. I need more referees. I don't care if you know what's going to be on the exam. I want you to know these things for a reason. And the other stuff that's in the rule book, it's great if you know it, but you don't need to know the nomination stuff or the other stuff that I mentioned before. Like, that is just useless for being a provincial referee. Any problems with Zoom, Jen? No? Okay, good. Like I said in the prior seminar, if you guys have any questions during the clinic, raise your hand at that moment and I'll get to it immediately. Yeah, this is going to be aimed at the knowledge that you need for meet day, because I want us to be running a very smooth meet. Like I said in the prior seminar, again, a lot of this stuff's going to be repeated. Who are our referees? Our referees are active lifters, coaches, retired coaches, individuals that have been in the community for a long, long time. Brock Haywood was someone who helped me out when I first became a referee. He was the first IPF level referee I met. He had a quote here: "As referees, we are responsible for the integrity and legacy of our sport. What this means is that we have a responsibility to come to any powerlifting meet prepared and ready to give our best for the lifters who are competing." That is something that I think is very important to anyone who wants to become a ref, is that you have to remember that first and foremost, we're here for the lifters and the community. We're not here to be Mr. or Mrs. Red Light. We are here to find, when someone walks on the platform, you assume they have white lights, and then you go from there. If they make a clear infraction that is beyond a benefit of the doubt scenario, you will give a red light accordingly. There's Chris Robb. Chris was president at one point, I think, right, Jen? I don't know. Chris has been a ref since I started in 2013. I feel like Chris has been a ref for 1,000,001 years.
Maybe Chris can let us know in the comments.
Oh, Chris! Chris, you were president, weren't you? Chris, I think, was president. While Chris responds, here we go. Just like I said in the last seminar, the referee process, it's pretty simple. 3 parts to it. You will shadow, you will pass the written exam, you will pass the practical exam. The shadow component is now there because I want people to understand what practical scenarios are like on meet day. You have one view of a squat, you have one view of a bench, one view of a deadlift. It happens once. You have one angle. When you see it, you have to make a decision very quickly. You need to understand there's a difference between depth is technically hip crease below the top of the knee. That's great and all, but when you have 5 spotters and a tiny meet venue and you're judging a super heavyweight and the crowd is super loud, these things will obscure your ability to adjudicate a lift. Written exam, that is true and false. For the most part, you need 90% to pass the written exam. The practical exam, you will also need 90% to pass. You will need to know things like how equipment check works, how weigh-in functions, and generally the 2 members who will be adjudicating your chief referee position will be seeing that you make reasonable calls. You don't need to be picture perfect, but if you are clearly giving reds or whites when they are very clearly not the case, you will miss marks. Yeah. All right, equipment check. Like I said, you're identifying lost lifters. You're trying to help out people. This is our first impression on lifters. I mentioned in the prior session that you got masters lifters who are competing for the first time. You have youth lifters who are coming with mom or dad, and they are lost. They are a lost lifter. This is where the BCPA and specifically referees who are seeing these people for the first time can help out and make sure they have a good meet day experience. Now, getting to the more technical bits of it, this will start 30 minutes before weigh-ins, and weigh-ins start 2 hours before the meet starts. So if the meet starts at noon, you are there at 9:30. This is also where we're getting an official record of what's going to be used. This will go to the chief referee once it's completed. If we see someone walking onto the platform with something that looks a little bit off, that's where we can grab the piece of paper, see what's up, see if it's in line with what they checked in. A few things. Let's get into the more technical bits here. we're looking for approved brands on the majority of equipment: knee wraps, wrist wraps, bench shirts, squat suits, singlets. All these need to be approved. Belts, sleeves, all this needs to be approved. T-shirts do not need to be approved. Socks do not need to be approved. Underwear does not need to be approved. Nor do shoes. There are specific rules for this stuff. T-shirts have to be form-fitting. They cannot be too short above the delt. They cannot be too long below the elbow. Underwear does not need to be approved. Socks don't need to be approved. Shoes do not need to be approved. There are specific rules for these socks, for example. You need deadlift socks. They have to come all the way up. Socks cannot have rubber lining on the bottom of them. Shoes, there is a specific, they have to be flat. They have to be an indoor sport shoe. We used to allow the Vibram 5, what are they called? The toe shoes. I don't know what else. I don't know their technical terminology, but we used to allow the toe shoes. That is not allowed. I confirmed with the CPU officiating chair. We don't really see it that often anymore, but that's not allowed. Items cannot be torn. That's kind of important because these days knee sleeves are getting stiff enough that you do see blowouts happening. You do see tears and holes and stuff. That is not allowed. If you see that, that is you can tell them that those aren't going to pass. They're out of luck. For the exam, I expect you to know all of what I just said. I also expect you to know where alterations may be made on equipment, on squat suits, bench shirts, and that sort of stuff. You should know that. I know it's uncommon, but if you do have an equipped lifter coming in, you cannot be clueless. You are expected to know the rules on that sort of stuff. I'll expect you to know what sort of logos and emblems are allowed on singlets, t-shirts, belts, squat suits, bench shirts, deadlift suits, all that sort of stuff. I'll expect you to know that you can, specifically Muslim women, are allowed to wear a one-piece singlet with coverings, and the implications of that, meaning that they cannot wear knee sleeves or knee wraps. I'll expect you to know the wrist wrap and knee wrap rules. Off the top of my head, knee wraps have to be 15 centimeters of coverage. Wrist wraps have to be 12 centimeters of coverage or less. Watches, jewelry, medical crepe, bandages, all that sort of stuff does not need approval. You could technically, Adam Ramsey used to wear medical bandages on his knees instead of knee sleeves for whatever reason, and that did not need to be approved. You can totally wear that.
We had to make people take medical tape off.
Medical crepe. A crepe. Sweatbands, that's also a rule. 12 centimeters and has to be one color, black or white. All right.
We have a couple of questions.
Yeah. Go for it.
Did you say that steel toe working groups are not allowed?
I don't think they're allowed. Who said that? Who said that?
Benjamin Yu.
That's funny. Of course, it's Benjamin Yu.
And then one more question.
Yeah.
Is an athlete allowed to re-sew the holes in their knee sleeves or other equipment?
I don't think you are. Yeah, that would count as a modification.
We asked Chris about the back of knee wraps when they come apart.
You're allowed. So yeah, if a wrap is too long, like a knee wrap. So a lot of the times, like knee wraps, out of the box, they come as 2 meters, the legal length. And then as you use them, they stretch and stretch and stretch. The grippers actually, interestingly, get shorter, but most wraps get longer. If they're too long, you can just cut them to 2 meters, and that's totally fine. That is allowed. Yeah. CPU card and CSIS. I think this year we now have the 2 membership system. So you're looking for, I think, an E, or what is the other letter?
E or a P.
An E or a P. It should have one of the 2. Mine clearly does not have one of the 2. CSIS also needs to be valid, right, for a year. Weigh-ins, lot number. Oh, yeah, someone had a.
Yeah, I have a question
Yep.
about the tailoring stuff.
Yeah.
So if you're tailoring, like my understanding is that some equipped lifters will tailor the length of their sleeve and that. So is that allowed? You're allowed to tailor the length of the sleeve?
You can tighten things. So like you can tighten the sleeve. I mean, I do all the time. That's why I'm marked up. You can tighten the sleeves. You can tighten the the straps, you can tighten the hips, you can do all that sort of stuff. It has to be on the original seams, and it can't start making the shirt or squat suit or whatever into like multiply, right? It cannot be multiple layers. It has to be on the original seams. And there are some other things like if you tighten the shoulder strap and now you have like 3 centimeters of strap sticking out, that has to be folded inwards. Just minor things like that. But there are specific rules as to how tailoring works. Anything else?
We'll need to know that for these.
Yep.
By saying medical tapes, it means like all kinds of, including K-tapes.
K-tape is not approved, as far as I know. Medical tape would be like for when you're using hook grip, you're allowed 2 layers. So for medical tape, you can have 2 layers on your thumb, but if you wanted to use it anywhere else, like your elbow or your hand, or I don't know, if you cut your shin or something, that needs to be approved by the chief referee. But if it's just 2 layers on your thumb, that you can just walk out and pull it, you're good. Weigh-ins. Lot number determines weigh-in order. Lot numbers are randomly assigned. It goes from lowest to highest. Weigh-ins can keep happening up until 30 minutes before the session starts. Again, lifters must strip to their underwear and socks. Both are optional. Paper towel can be used for hygiene on the scale itself. The referees must be the same sex as the athlete. If there is not a same-sex referee, we will find someone, a volunteer or some sort of other person, maybe the meet director or someone, will help with weigh-ins. The coach can accompany you. For minors, we do need a parent or an adult, or a parent, a coach with them. No shows. If you miss weigh-ins, you go to the bottom of the list. Attempt cards will be delivered at that time, so you get 11 attempt cards. And I will expect you to be competent in understanding when a re-weigh-in can occur. So if you, let's say you're trying to compete in the 105 class, you come in, you weigh in at 106, you can be allowed another weigh-in. But if you keep trying over and over and over and over again, that eventually the referees can cut you off. Just trying to think off the top of my head what the other situations would be for re-weigh-in. Also, if, let's say, weigh-ins are going to end at 12:30, they started at, help me out, 11, and you're going for your first re-weigh-in, and it looks like it's going to happen at 12:45 because other people might be weighing in, or for whatever reason it was slowed down, you might, not necessarily will be, but you might be allowed to get that re-weigh-in. That's going to be up to the referee's discretion. Let's see. I will expect you to know that you should be checking ID at weigh-ins. I will expect you to obviously know all of the age and weight classes. I will expect you to know who can and cannot compete in the open. It used to be that anyone could compete in the open. That's not the case anymore. And you should know that the scale has to work to 2 decimal places. It's an electronic, what is the technical word they use? It's an electronic digital scale up to 2 decimal places. I think that's the technical term they use. Any questions on weigh-ins? Nope.
There's a question about, we can see, can you just show us with your arm, like, where the bottom of your belt starts, so where's the shortest place your t-shirt?
I would say like that.
Okay.
Like that. Yeah.
We just wanted to see it right now.
4 possible positions a referee can be in: the chief referee, side referee, technical controller, or the jury. Let's go through them really quickly here. The chief referee, again, they are the person who all the onus kind of lays on. Hopefully, if we have enough, at larger meets like provincials, we had a technical controller. Hopefully, if we get enough national refs, we can have a jury at provincials as well. And the technical controller and jury kind of offload some of the responsibility off of the chief referee in a sense. Ultimately, it comes back to the chief ref, but in the moment, it offloads some responsibility. At most, if not all local meets, it's going to lie on the chief ref. If you were wondering what a red light was for, you go to the chief ref. If you want the bar cleaned on your open or deadlift, you ask the head ref. You do not ask the spotters or loaders. You ask the chief referee. the chief referee is going to be the person interacting with the score table. They're going to be the one dealing with, oh, misload happened. Let me make sure that the score table knows what to do. Commands are part of it for sure, but that is not really what the chief referee is most concerned about, I would say. If someone wants to swap the barbell out, let's say session 1 is totally done. These 59s and 66s have lifted. It's totally done. They got awards and everything. And now these 74s and 83s are going to go in session 2. And, or we can flip it around. So then we can say Ben Yu wants the bar switched out because he thinks the knurling is too soft. Ben does not have a right to that. You cannot swap out the bar at any time during the meet unless it's damaged or bent. You will need to know that for the exam. You cannot swap out the bar. We had this at 2018 Calgary Worlds. A prominent deadlifter was trying to get us to get him the nicer bar that was upstairs, and he knew he was trying to skirt the rules by asking the spotters and loaders, and we did not allow it. So that is a rule, and that's simply because, yeah, that session is done, but all those lifters across the sessions are competing for best lifter, right? Like, you got to be fair. Yeah. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, we have a question from Zoom.
Yep.
Asking, how is the scale calibrated prior to weigh-ins, and who's responsible for calibrating it?
Technically, the chief ref has to calibrate everything.
But I guess we don't.
Whether that actually happens, yeah.
No, I was going to say the BCPA will occasionally
Yeah.
take our scale to a scale
Yeah.
place, and they will give us a certificate that says it's.
Same with, technically, the chief ref jointly with the other referees should be weighing all the plates before every meet. I don't think that actually ever happens. Happened once, yeah. Yeah, it's quite a rare occurrence. You do not need to know that. Anything very obscure, you're not going to get examined on, all right? Like, I want you guys to be super competent on meet day stuff so you can have the meet run smoothly. Any meet day relevant things come up, you should know. It's great to know all the little nuances, but let's be honest, you need to know what's happening on meet day. I mentioned this in the other presentation. The lifters meeting is now being formalized in BC. If you become a referee, you will receive a written formalized guide for the lifters meeting, and then you also need to know when that starts and ends. Yeah, moving on. Any questions about the chief referee position? No, okay. Side ref. The side ref gets a lot more maneuverability than the chief referee. They have the ability to get out of the chair. They can move around. They can see from different angles. The chief ref has to be in full view of the lifter at all times. The side refs can go pretty much wherever they want, as long as they have a view of the chief referee, so they know the chief referee can see them put their arm down or keep it up, and then they can see if they should be replacing the bar or not. The side refs, they will ensure making sure the load on the bar is correct. They will help during equipment check. You need 2 referees present for equipment check. And they will also be assisting in weigh-ins. Side referees should not be emulating the chief ref. If the chief ref says that, I don't know, the chief ref says that the deadlift had soft shoulders, if you're in the side ref position and you thought they're locked out, you ignore the chief referee. There are 3 referees for a reason. Maybe the chief ref was looking at their left shoulder and you're on the right side and the right is totally locked out. That's their supinated hand and it's totally locked out. You give it a white light. There are 3 referees for a reason. You get 3 angles. Stick to your view of what's happening always. I mentioned in the prior seminar, my left hip is 2 inches higher than my right hip. Like, that's on one side it's blatantly high, on the other side it's looking pretty good. Right, if you are in the side position and you have your hand up, if you think Diana's knees are soft, you keep your hand up. Just because the chief ref and the other side ref put their hand down does not mean you do. You keep it up, the lifter will do their lift, and you will keep your hand up, and then you'll give a blue light at the end of it. Ideally, the chief ref or the other ref will also notice it. They'll wait 5 seconds, they'll give a replace command, and then we can see what the problem is. But if you see an issue and they get the squat command, you do not give it a white light. That is a blue light. That's the side ref position. Technical controller, we did have a TC again at provincials. The TC's responsibilities are pretty simple. They're checking equipment as the lifter is coming up to the platform. They'll be checking wrist wraps. They'll be checking to make sure the singlet is not touching the sleeves, or the sleeves are touching the socks. Kind of a side note, you are allowed to wear sleeves on the bench. There's no knee sleeves, to be clear. You're allowed to wear knee sleeves on the bench. There's no rule against that. But again, cannot be touching the sock or the singlet. If we do have a TC present, the lifter talks to the TC about cleaning the bar on an open or deadlift or whatever. That's just one of the ways how the TC can, I don't like using the word responsibility, can kind of offload the in the moment stress off the chief referee. Ultimately, it kind of falls on the chief ref, but the TC does help. The jury, there's Gable Wang, one of our refs, IPF level ref. With a jury, the jury is 3 or 5 members, not 4, not 2, not 1, not 6, 3 or 5. When we have 3 jury members, it has to be a unanimous decision to overturn a lift. If there are 5 jury members, it has to be the majority of them agreeing to turn over a lift. They will only turn over a lift if there's 2 red lights and 1 white light. So you need 1 white light to get an overturn even possible. If it is really close, like if your depth was super close and they gave it reds, but you thought it was in, you're probably just going to stick with reds. It has to be pretty clear of an infraction, or sorry, pretty clear of an error on the platform referees for them to do anything about it. Like I mentioned in the prior seminar, you can only complain about your own lift as a lifter. You cannot go, you used to be able to go and complain about other lifters' lifts, contest it, try and make them fail lifts or whatever. You cannot do that anymore. You can only contest your own lift, only your own stuff. Video replay technically is possible through the official camera that is being used for the meet. However, that is like, maybe you see it once during every Worlds or something. It's very, very rare. Once again, it offloads responsibility off the chief referee. If you get a red light and a jury is present, as the lifter or coach, you will go to the jury. You will not go to the chief referee. You go to the jury. In extreme situations, the jury can replace a referee off of the platform. That is exceptionally rare. What are they looking for? Just like I said in the prior seminar, repeating a lot of info, but the referees are not out to get you. We are not out to get any of the lifters. We're trying to, when a lifter walks on the platform, we assume white lights. Yeah.
Can a jury overturn a lift without a request?
Yep, that happened to me. 2017 juniors, the jury was on my left side, my high hip. I squatted, I got 2 whites and a red, and they thought it was very high, and I got that as a red. I think I took 4 quick squats in 17 minutes. That felt absolutely amazing.
Is there any rule around, like, say you take your opener, you put in for a higher weight, and your opener gets overturned?
Yep.
Is there any rule around you're allowed to change your segment?
Oh man,
You're stuck with that?
I would have to look that up too, because that did essentially happen to me. So I thought it was a good lift, and it turned into a no lift. And actually, I can't recall what I ended up doing. I might have chosen to stay at the same weight. I'd have to look that up. That's a good question though. Any questions on the Zoom?
No, just Chris is reiterating that the jury will overturn a lift if it's like obvious blatant action.
Right, yeah. A lift needs to be very clearly incorrectly called. It cannot be something super, super close. The squat.
I do have one question.
Right, so for all the lifts, for the squat, bench, and deadlift, I'm going to expect you to know what you can get called for a red, a blue, a yellow. You should know what the cards are. Minor things like, if you get the squat command and you take a step, that's illegal. Like I mentioned before, if you're squatting super wide and your elbows are aiding you out of the hole by hitting your thighs, that's a red. Pretty rare to get that sort of stuff, but that is illegal. Depth in reality might be skewed by the amount of spotters, like I mentioned in the beginning. If you have 5 spotters, tight venue, big crowd, everyone's kind of moving around, you might not be able to see depth. If you don't get a great view, you have to give a white light. The benefit of the doubt is going to go to the lifter at all times. Staying upright with the knees locked. Again, the European lifters have gotten in the habit of squatting ultra low bar, which means they're super bent over. Camera can see me. Yeah? This is legal. This is legal. This is not legal. You need to be, your hips and knees need to be locked. I get it. If you're low bar, you're not going to be like this. You can have a tiny bit of lean, but anything exceptionally leaned over will not pass. You will not get a squat command, very likely. It should be noted, some small technicalities. You are technically allowed a lift off from the squat. Really weird, but technically you're allowed it. The lift is considered commencing when the knees unlock. The thumb must be in contact with the bar. This has been a thing in the past. The thumb, if this is the bar, the thumb has to be in contact with the bar. It cannot be like this. It cannot be like this. It has to be like this. All right? That's been a big thing. You need to be in contact with it. Again, this was something that was kind of confusing before. They have clarified that that is the case. Hands, grip width, pretty simple. Cannot be touching the collars, right? You can go as wide as you can. You cannot be touching the plates or doing anything like that. Right. If a rack height, if we run into a rack height issue where the lifter walks onto the platform and they submitted a rack height of 10 and they come out to the platform and they're going, oh, this is too low. It's too low. If the scorecard, if the scorekeeper's card says rack height 10 and they're complaining, their complaint doesn't matter. You keep the clock running and you can tell, yeah, sure, the spotters can change the rack height for them, do all that, but you keep the clock running because that card, like I said in the beginning, it's very important it's filled out correctly. That card says rack height of 10. That's their problem, that they chose the wrong rack height and they signed off on the card. So maybe when you're lifting as an athlete, you should actually be paying attention to what they wrote in that card. It'll have implications. If the majority of the refs do not think the lifter is in the correct position, so if you walk out the squat and you are, again, super leaned over, after 5 seconds, if everyone's hands are still up, if the majority of the hands are still up, I should say, if let's say one side ref puts down their hand, the two, me, and the other guy, think that the hips are not locked enough, we'll keep our hands up. After 5 seconds, you will get a replace command and the arm will come back. You will replace the bar. The clock will continue to go and we can tell you what the problem is. If a lifter times out, meaning they run out of 60 seconds because of these issues or whatever else, they will then get a rack command again with the arm coming back. This is all stuff you guys should know. Any questions on the squat? Yep.
Can you just maybe a visual demonstration for larger lifters?
Yep.
With really big legs, where is that increase? Because I would have difficulty.
It is hard.
No.
It is hard. It is hard.
And it doesn't have to be, necessarily at an angle.
Right.
It can look to me like it's parallel, but that
Totally.
increase-
It's actually that. So it's funny you mentioned that. So equipped lifting kind of runs into the same problem because the suit is digging in so hard to the leg that the leg is kind of jutting out of the singlet. So if you looked at it from here to here, it looks flat, but that's just because the meat is sticking out of the singlet or the squat suit. But in reality, the hip crease is way down here, right? So I get what you mean. You're looking at the top of the knee and the hip crease. Everything here doesn't matter. Yeah.
be off the bar.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if someone's got very jacked quads and again, knee is here and they got all this muscle coming up, you ignore all that. It's just the knee and the hip crease. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to maybe speak to wrapping the differences between wrapping raw lifters and equipped lifters?
Technically no difference.
Technically, there's no difference, but do you find it hard to kind of does it look very different as a ref? The standard is the same, but in terms of what you actually see.
Right. Technically as a ref, you should be reffing equipped and raw lifters totally the same. If they're squatting high, it's a red light. If they are, butts coming off the bench, that's a red light. All the same rules apply. in practice, the hip crease, I find a lot of the times people think the hip crease is actually where their belly crease is. The hip crease is down here, it's not up here. And the hip crease, the suit will bite in so strongly if they're wearing a tight suit. The suit will bite in so strongly that you should actually, I feel like you get a clear view of where the hip crease is. But yeah, again, I find the biggest thing is that equipped lifters like super heavyweights or big lifters, you will see like the thigh sticking out of the squat suit and it looks flat and people think, oh, they're parallel or high. But in reality, it's so tight that the meat of the quad is sticking out and the hip crease is way, way, way further down. Yeah. Anyone else? Nope. All right. Bench. Yeah. Yeah, okay. The bench. All right. Soft elbows. Lifters will often have soft elbows when there's self-unracking. That is just because they tend to load the lats as they come out. That is a red light. The elbows need to be locked. Additionally, this used to be the case that if they medically or physically could not lock their arm, we would allow it and it'd be fine. That is not the case anymore, unfortunately. If a lifter cannot lock their arm, that is a red light. It sucks, but that is the rule. The workaround for this as a ref, again, is as they're walking up to the platform, you should take note of how straight their arm is, or on their opener, when you see them press, it should be pretty light, that when they press out, they will strongly lock out. You'll get an idea as to where their elbow is relative to where they started. And in general, as a referee, you should be looking at how their opener is, because as the loads get heavier, they will start to get sloppier with their technique. Their shoulders on the deadlift will start to come forward. Their depth might get higher. Their knees might get softer. You should be aware of, oh, this guy doesn't just have big quads. His knees are actually soft. There's a difference between the two. Elbow depth. Like I mentioned before, this is very hard to give a red light to. The elbow needs to be, both elbows need to be below the shoulder joint, or I just think of it as the AC joint. When you're sitting in the side ref position, this is very hard to find. You need to move yourself around if you suspect someone will be high. Even then, it is difficult. I mentioned this in detail in the prior session, but if you get a red light on depth, even though technically the refs should not be getting influenced by other refs, they're all going to start looking at your elbows and you will risk a bomb out. You'll have to go with a narrower grip, whether the refs are right or wrong. That is just the reality of reffing. They're going to start looking at your elbows and you will have problems. That's just the reality of how it is. The butt, over 50% of the glute needs to be on the bench. That came from people arching in a way where we couldn't tell if the hamstring or the glute was on the bench. As long as we don't see daylight below the butt, you'll probably be fine. What else? The heels. The heels have to be as flat as the shoe allows. If your shoe is rounded in the back and you go to bench and the refs think that it is genuinely still up, that will probably run into an issue. I would recommend using something with a very, 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 very flat heel. That's just the way it is. You can, as you walk up onto the platform as a lifter, you can show the refs. There's nothing wrong with showing the refs that your heel of the shoe is kind of rounded, but you're just kind of asking for trouble. Bar path. The bar can go up and down. What do I mean by that? The bar can have one side go up, one side go down, one side go up, one side go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, until you lock out. There's nothing wrong with that. That's totally legal. It is only illegal if the entire bar at once goes down after the press command. In line with that, if you have someone who, let's say they're coming down and they jump the press command and then come back down and then get a press command, that's a red light. If you clearly have jumped a command like that, that is a red light, even though technically you didn't get a press command. So, technically you were fine. It's a red light if you jump a command like that. Heaving. Heaving, if you are allowed to sink the bar into your chest, however, after you get the press command, you cannot sink further and then press. What you can sink in all you want. Once you get the press command, you have to go straight up. Long hair needs to be tied up. Again, false moves. Yeah, you cannot jump commands. Reverse grip is illegal. You cannot grip the bar supinated. It has to be pronated. Grip width, you need to cover the ring. The 81 centimeter rings need to be covered. You can go, like I mentioned, you can go super wide and then angle your wrists or internally rotate your wrist and then cover the ring with your index finger. That is totally legal as long as the ring is covered. Lifters cannot set up with the feet on the pad. That is a new rule. If a lifter is setting up with the feet on the pad, you will tell them to set up again and the clock will continue to run. That is their error. That is not your fault. In general, you're only going to stop the clock if it was your fault or the spotter's fault for something. If the spotter screwed up the rack height, we will pause the clock. Yeah.
If we suspect the ring is not covered in front because it's covered in the bottom, are we able to re-ram ourselves from here? Like, does the entirety of the ring have to be covered, or is it just?
Huh. So you mean, like if you were looking from the feet, if it's not covered from there? I never even thought of that. I always assumed from the view of the front, like from the head.
Because Japanese grip would
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Actually, decided that you're allowed to move, right?
Yep.
So you could go. Like
Totally.
you said,
You could actually move all the way around if you wanted to. Kind of weird, but yeah, you can. You can move. So yeah, you could move technically. Yeah.
I have a question. In the technical rule book, that setup is not allowed.
Anymore. That's a 2019. That's a 2019. That's me from 2019.
So why is that?
That's when I bombed out.
That's not why I was pointing it out, but why is it not allowed like the feet that wide anymore?
So I honestly didn't understand because I know they give a photo of it in the rule book. So what I understood was that they were showing that she had, I think it's a girl in the photo. I think they were showing that she did not have 50% of her glute on the bench. I think that was the case where, oh, did we lose? I don't have video. Oh, okay. Jen.
Demo anyways.
I think that was the case where like, if this was the bench, I think only like this hamstring glute thing was touching. If you know Panda powerlifting on, yeah, Nick Trillo is like that too. Yeah, I think it had to do with that his glute wasn't there. I'm definitely not like the hamstrings there and the butts there. Yeah, that would be legal still. That'd be fine. No, I know. Yeah. No, that should be fine. I know it's so.
Like narrow feet and then
Yeah, I know. It was really annoying. Yeah. Feet, your feet can slide. So your feet can do this. They can slide around all you want. They cannot lift and then move like that. You cannot step around once you get that start command. Yeah, cannot touch the bench either. They cannot touch the supports or use the supports when you're benching. If the safeties are too low, just like how the rack height, if the lifter got wrong, if the safeties are like set to safety height 2 and you got a super heavyweight benching 200 kilos, you can keep the clock running and change the safety height. That is just egregiously not going to do anything for them. So you can do that kind of stuff. 2 attempt changes are allowed in bench only. Otherwise, just in a regular 3 lift meet, 3 attempts. In general, you should be aware how bench only meets tend to behave like a deadlift, like the third deads. You're allowed 2 attempt changes. Just like any other lift in a regular meet, you're allowed to change your opener as well. And you can change that up or down, right? If you're opening at 200 kilos, you can change that down to 100, or you can change that up to 300. In a bench only meet, just like third deadlifts, you have to start paying attention to lot numbers because, if someone moves their attempt down, we'll get into it. Well, yeah.
So leg drive.
Yeah.
On a lifter, when moving versus heaving.
Mhm.
Is that something people?
So.
Because there's a lot of.
Yeah. So actually, when I bench, totally. When I bench, where's me? Because my feet are positioned where they are, when I go to press, my entire body shifts towards the head of the bench. That is totally fine, as long as the butt is staying in contact and the head is staying in contact and the feet aren't lifting. But yeah, you can use a ton of leg drive and shift everything back towards the head. That's totally fine.
And it's not heaving if the bar is not.
Yeah, as long as it's only heaving if after the press command they sink and then throw, right? You like once you get the press command, you just got to go. You can't further sink. And that's why if you're going to, it's kind of hard, right? Because if you're a sinky bencher, you need to sink it quick enough that you don't get a press command. Because what can happen is if I'm just reffing lifter after lifter after lifter, and someone comes and they're a sinky bencher, if I don't know that and I just see them, they just keeping sinking, and then they stop for a second, I'm going to give them a press command. And if I got it wrong and they wanted to keep sinking, now they're kind of screwed, right? So sinking is, again, it's about how you're playing the game. Like if you're going to sink, you should probably be pretty fast with it. Anyone else? Questions on the bench? Nope. Zoom? Good? Yeah, keep your head on the bench. Deadlift. Ramping or hitching is the most common issue we find in conventional deadlifts. As you come up, if you lean back, can you see me, Jen?
Yeah.
As you come to here, if you go like this and it slows down and it looks like it's resting on your thighs, that will get a blue card. It is a very fine line, right? If you do it fast enough, it probably will look fine. If it's slowing down, you're shaking, it's a grinder, as soon as the bar starts to rest on the thigh or anything like that, that's going to be cause for an infraction. Soft knees are super common when you're trying to sell your lockout. If you lock it out here and you keep leaning back and your knees go soft, again, that's an infraction. It doesn't matter if it was super easy and they're shouting and they think they got the lift. If they do something like that, that is a red light. Soft shoulders. Where are my notes on that? Common in larger lifters, also common in lifters who are gripping the bar inside shoulder width on sumo, simply because once you get to your third attempt and it's super heavy, your upper back is going to round and you're going to be like this. It is very hard to properly lock out your shoulders afterwards. That's just the game that these lifters are playing, and that's fine. They might get their opener or their second because it's light enough they can uncurl their back. They might run into a problem on their third. Again, just like with soft elbows or depth or anything else, you should be watching their first attempt. You get an idea of where their shoulders lock. You see on their second attempt, it's a little bit more questionable, and on their third attempt, it's like this. You'll get an idea. You'll know that you're not seeing things incorrectly. Soft knees or up and down. If a lifter has a super toes out stance on sumo, it's not too uncommon for them to lock the knees, get off balance, and then lock it out. Even if something's super fast and looks easy and this and that, if it has up and down, that is a red light. What else? Slamming the bar, yes, that's allowed. It's not an infraction as long as the lifter holds onto the bar all the way down. We don't like it a lot because it damages the platform, but it is legal. Grip can be anything you want. Technically, you could supinate grip. Technically, you could grab it like you're going to do a curl. Mixed grip, overhand hook. You can overhand hook. I had a friend who used to do that. All those things are legal. When the bar leaves the floor, that is considered when the lift starts. If someone's getting super hyped up, they're shaking the bar, they're getting super excited. If the plates leave the floor during that, even if it was unintentional, that lift is going to get red lighted. If they're getting hyped up and the bar leaves the floor and then they try and lift it, that's a red light. It left the floor. Yeah.
I have this kind of related question similar to that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see lifters look like what is like an action where like really try and pull it off the floor, but they like don't really get anywhere, and then they like have at her again. Is that like if the plates don't come off the floor?
Technically, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was like
A 1 year
like an actual, if it looks like an actual attempt, like say what if they try to lift it, it doesn't come off the floor, and then their hands leave, and then their hands.
That I would probably consider, yeah.
But if their hands stay on the bar.
then I'd probably consider it okay. Like Mike T's really, yeah, like Mike T. I don't know if you guys have seen him. He goes down, he does this, and then he goes, and then he goes again, and then he actually pulls. That is easier to tell that it's not him actually trying. And I think he even takes it a step further. He tells the refs before he walks on the platform, and he tells them, hey, I'm going to do like whatever it is, 1 or 2 things that'll look like a start. That's not me starting. And he makes sure that he's not letting the plates leave the ground. Like he's trying to make it as easy as he can on the refs. Yeah. Setting the shoulders. So settling of the shoulders. Once lifter locks out, if they're locked and the bar, when the bar settles, as the bar is settling at lockout, it'll move down a bit. That's not a red light. That's just the person locking out and gravity doing its thing. Rocking back and forth, the Jen special. She on the squat and deadlift is totally legal. You can come up, rock back and forth as long as the bar doesn't go up and down. You can rock back and forth. That is totally fine to rock between your heels and your toes. Again, you cannot step around, right? Your foot cannot come off the ground and step around, but you can rock them back and forth. That's how Jen almost squatted the national record. Back spotters. This is also important. Back spotters are not a thing in the IPF. No clue why, but the spotters cannot request a back spot. It's just not a thing. You want the spotters to be moving the deadlift jack out of the way, obviously, but back spotters are not a thing. They cannot be requested.
So if you go backwards, you're on your own.
Yeah, pretty much. Once you fall down, we'll make sure the spotters try and help you up. But yeah, yeah.
Was there ever a clarification on the passing out?
Oh, the one where he. So we have a little WhatsApp group for the referees, and we did discuss it. And I mean, like, okay, if you're so what happened for anyone who doesn't know, the lifter locked it out, and then they passed out. They kept their hands on the bar hit the floor, and then they just front flipped over. Look, if we're going to allow people to slam the bar into the ground, which is pretty uncontrolled, I mean, that's pretty much the same thing. I mean, if anything, his put down was a lot more controlled than what I've seen. Yeah, his hands were still on the bar.
Chris Rock says no.
Chris says no. Chris will give you a red.
Controlled horizontally. Like most people will drop it. They drop it.
Right.
But horizontally it doesn't roll. But his bar it rolled.
It did roll. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of.
I'll email Brock. See what Brock says.
Chris just wants to remind that like bar has to be under control all the time for the deadlift, which I guess is why he's probably saying no.
Yeah, because passing out technically you have no control. You're dead.
You'll say no too. Brock will say no too.
Huh?
It happened so quickly.
It did happen very quickly. Yeah. I don't know. For the exam, you should be aware of how third deadlift can occur. If it's a record, for example, the lifter is expected to take it immediately. If there is a misload or something, you should be aware how lot numbers come into play. I'm not sure if I wrote the example down here. Man. Nope. All right. So, for example, if you have a lifter who is, let's take lifter A. Lifter A is deadlifting 100 kilos. Their lot number is 1, okay? Lot number 1, lifter A, 100 kilos. Lifter B, 120 kilos. Lot number 2, whatever. If lifter A goes for 125 kilos on their on their third, and they miss, lifter B can now not drop to 125. Or 122.5, okay? They cannot drop down to a lower number that has already, they could not drop down to yeah, they cannot drop down to whatever's loaded because they had the higher lot number. And the order goes in lot number. So Graham at Westerns tried to do this to me when I was handling Lonray. Graham had a lifter with a lower lot number than my guy. so Graham was making it so that I couldn't lower my guy's attempt to what his guy just went for, even though his guy just failed. So lifter A in that scenario failed at whatever, 100 kilos. I could not lower to 100 kilos to match him. I had to go 102 and a half or whatever. So you should be aware of how lot numbers will affect third attempts. You should be aware of how record lifts will be treated, all that sort of stuff. Compensatory time. You should also be aware of how compensatory time is used, when it's used, and for how long. If we have less than 6 lifters in flight, we'll be using compensatory time. That is pretty rare. Maybe in like special O or something, we might use it. Or if we did like a, did it happen to you twice? Wow, that's weird. Okay. Wow, that is brutal. I didn't. Wow. I did an 8 lifter meet at the Arnold, and I'd take off my wraps and they would slap my knees to get blood back in them, and then we'd have to immediately start wrapping. Yeah, that was a terrible time. Compensatory time. If you have 5 lifters, you'll add a minute. 4 lifters, you'll add 2 minutes. 3 lifters, you'll add 3 minutes. If they have to follow themselves for whatever reason, let's say they were the last in the first round, and for whatever reason, everyone jumped to a heavier attempt in the second round, they will get 3 minutes, I believe.
I think it's 4, so you get 3.
Right, 3 compensatory minutes. First attempt changes. Yeah, you can change your first attempt up or down up until, if you're in flight A, 3 minutes until flight A starts. In flight B, up until the third lifter goes. Now, if the speaker, if the person on the announcing system does not announce it, they will announce it whenever they do, and then you'll have a minute to submit your new attempt change. Okay, so if they screw up and they do not tell you that you have 3 minutes left or whatever, you will get an extra minute. Again, deadlift and bench only have similar rules for third attempts. You should know that they can change the third attempt twice. Lot number, again, we went into lot numbers. You should be very familiar with how lot numbers will affect attempts. The lift is considered live once the chief referee states the bar is loaded. So let's say you're trying to play games during third attempts, third attempt deads. If you try and submit an attempt change after the chief ref says the bar is loaded, you're out of luck. You have to be on the ball. If you're lifting or coaching, you should have it pre-written out, and as soon as you can, you submit the attempt change. You do not want things going too fast and you're out of luck. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
The 3 compensatory minutes would apply if there's any reason the person gets a reattempt and they're the last
Yep.
in the flight, right?
Yep. Yeah, so if there's like a misload, I think I go into that. Oh, there you go. If there's a misload, spotter error, or equipment failure, or any other fault, and through no fault of their own. So I don't know if the squat rack somehow tipped over or something for no reason, or again a misload, or a spotter takes the bar early. Those are valid reasons for a relift, and the relift will happen at the end of the round. Someone knocking? Knock, knock. Oh, Rice Krispies, more importantly. Oh, see, the Zoom people are missing out. If there is a misload, whether it's light or heavy, let's say you asked for 100 kilos and you got 97 and a half, or you got 102 and a half. If it was successful, you can just accept that load. You can say, okay, looks like I squatted 97. Or you can ask for a reattempt at the end of the round. You should be aware of all the rules pertaining to misloads and reattempts. If it's not a multiple of 2.5, so let's say they loaded one side of the bar and didn't load the other, and you went up with like, whatever the math is, 98.5 kilos or something, that attempt will be rounded down to 97.5. The number, as far as I know, I think every single time it's rounded down if there's issues like that. Yeah. Right, you should also be aware that on records, you can use half kilo increments on And then in standard non-record attempts, just 2.5 kilo increments. Records also apply to the category that you're actually lifting in. If you are a master's lifter and you're competing in the open for whatever reason, you cannot try and chip a master's record. Or if you're at nationals, you cannot chip a provincial record, right? You cannot try and put an attempt 0.5 kilo above that record. You have to take the full 2.5 kilo jump. You would get accredited with that record after the fact. You know, if you didn't bomb out of the rest of the meet, you will get that record, whatever it is, but you cannot try and chip it at the meet on game day. Right, or if you run into a situation where the record is 100 kilos, lifter A squats 97.5, submits 101, so they're submitting that record lift. If lifter B squats 102.5 or 102.5 above that record lift you tried to submit for your second, your attempt will get rounded down to 100, I suppose. So you should be aware how those record lifts work. General practices, just simple basic stuff. No adhesives on the bottom of your soles. You can only use like a spray of water. You cannot use, I don't know, sticky stuff. Diet Coke, yeah, that used to be the move. Diet Coke is what people used to do. Technically not legal. Coaches can go to any back or front side angle within, I believe, 5 meters within the platform, up to 5 meters within the platform. So they should be able to move around and have a view of depth or whatever else. Coaches are permitted that. That is their right. You can only adjust your belt on the platform. You cannot adjust your wrist wraps, your knee wraps, your singlet, your suit, your sleeves, anything. Only your belt you can monkey with on the platform. The bar is cleaned on thirds, just obvious stuff. It can be cleaned at an earlier time. You have to ask the chief referee, it's up to them. Submit your attempt within 60 seconds and you have to hop off the platform within 30 seconds. Medical tape, again, you're allowed 2 layers on the thumb. Otherwise, you need approval from the chief referee. I think that is it. Yeah. Please contact me if you need additional help. Other than that, should be pretty straightforward. If you studied everything I mentioned today in the exam, and this is being recorded, hopefully, yes, okay. If you watch that recording 3 times, you should pass the exam. That is about as simple as it gets. If you were able to answer every question there, you should be fine. All right, any questions? Yeah.
All of these things, are they in the IPF?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We enforce the new rule where coaches aren't allowed to make videos.
Oh God.
Because technically it says even in the
Yeah.
rules, you're allowed to.
God. Technically, so at provincials, yeah, provincials we didn't allow the videoing in the wings, right? When lifters were coming out for the lift. In the interest of keeping the sport low barrier to entry and fun and accessible and all that good stuff, I don't think we should enforce that rule at local meets. At provincials, I think it's fine, and I think it also, in general, the kind of the way Jen's leading things is that we're trying to make provincials like regionals, right? I mean, our qualifying total for provincials, I think, is the same as regionals. We had a technical controller, just like regionals. Hopefully, if we get enough national refs, we will have a jury at provincials. So we're trying to make it like a local regionals. So then when you go to Westerns, you're used to all this stuff. You're used to, I usually look at my video footage before I submit my attempt. You're going to be used to not being able to do that. You're going to be used to the technical controller. You're going to know what to do with the jury. You're going to be ready for it totally. So I think that what we'll do going forward is we will keep that enforced at provincials, but at local meets, that's not a big deal to me. Yep.
But for a weight cutoff for provincial, if you weigh over, you're still allowed to compete, whereas for regionals, you're disqualified. What are you
Jennifer?
thinking?
From next year, no.
Okay.
The AGM went on for so long, I can't remember if the thing got passed or friendly amended.
It didn't.
It passed, but no one
Or it
friendly
didn't get
amended.
friendly amendment.
Yeah,
So you're
so
just-
from now, if you don't make weighted provincials, you're in. But I would propose like next year, I might friendly amend myself and be like, you could lift as a guest, because then it
Right.
doesn't matter if you don't make weight, if you're not with your peers, like, doesn't really matter.
You'll get an unofficial total essentially. You'll be able to lift and do everything, but you just won't get a medal or any trophy or anything.
Yeah, and then you're,
Yeah.
that total will qualify you for a question.
Yeah, it'd just be like a gym total essentially, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Will we be emailed the video, or will you be available?
I'll try and email it out, yeah.
Which video?
The recording.
Oh, the recording. Yeah.
I have a question about jury and like timing of like the next steps.
Yeah.
I've seen this happen, but I'm not sure what.
Yeah.
So if a jury is looking at a lift, it usually takes more than a minute for
Yeah.
them to make a decision. What happens to the next attempt of that lifter? Are they able to change it depending on what the jury says?
I think so. Want to ask Chris, Jen? You want to double check? If the jury is deliberating on a decision, and let's say it takes 2 minutes to decide,
What about your time selection?
yeah, your next attempt, I think you should still have 1 minute, if I recall.
From when they decide.
Yeah. So that would make
If the jury has to deliberate,
Can you tell
the
me
next,
his name and he should type and I'll speak it?
Chris, can you type instead of speak? Because we can't hear.
oh, okay.
Hello, Brutus.
There are questions on the Zoom while we wait for Chris to type.
Sure.
People want to know when and how they can do the exam.
Right. We'll have it available online as well as in person. And when, John, how do you do on the exam today? You pass?
Which exam?
The BCPA exam?
It's 122 questions.
It's 122
I did like
questions. Oh. All right. Once I have a few referees take it and I get an idea as to how they found it and stuff, we should be able to take the
It's
exam.
pretty solid, but it is still detailed.
It is very
It's
detailed.
not overly technical like it used to be, but like, oh, how many people are on
Yeah. Yeah, you should know like the platform. You should know the platform can only have 2 to 5 spotters, stuff like that.
It's a mix of like true or false, mix of like there's some
Yeah.
multiple choice.
It's largely true or false. I think there's like a few multiple choice. There's a number of written questions. Short, they're not long, but I don't know, I would say within a couple weeks you should be able to take it. Like it shouldn't take. I can drive around to whatever's convenient for people.
Because a lot of people want to take it at once. We could find a
Yeah.
central place.
Yeah, we can find a central place.
So testing time.
I would say within a couple of weeks we can get it running.
You mentioned earlier though that the first portion of going through the process would be the
Shadow,
portion.
yeah.
So if we don't.
I don't mind if you guys take the exam first, the written part first.
I'm only asking because even when there are meets down here, it's very hard for me to get here. 'Cause I'm
Okay.
up north.
Hmm.
So I would try, obviously, but I can't hop on a plane to come to testing or just to shadow and then like scoot back up.
We
So
can.
it's a little hard.
Are you gonna be at the Kamloops meet?
When is Cameron?
June?
June 15th to 16th.
June 15 to
I'll
16.
be-
He's not even.
Unfortunately.
Uh,
I try to look and like plan, but
I don't mind having you take the written first and then do the shadow and then do the practical. I would definitely want you to shadow before you do a
Yeah,
practical.
absolutely.
Yeah. Because even so the way we used to do things is that you wouldn't do any practical exam or anything until you're taking your head ref test. But if we're putting you immediately into the head ref chair, I want you to have experience at least like shadowing, like seeing how it's done. Yeah.
What are the procedures for like indicating that you A, wish to shadow and B, would like to write the exam?
You just email me.
Just email you?
Yeah. What is it? Officiating at bc dash
Or
or just DM me in that the referee Instagram.
people want to know what shadowing is like.
Oh, sure. You'll just sit beside the referee and you can ask questions here or there. Obviously, don't try and don't try and bug them too much. But refereeing's, you're sitting there. You're not doing a lot when an attempt isn't happening. So feel free to talk to the referee, and we will have you shadow both the chief referee and the side ref. Generally, so. I mentioned this, I don't know if I mentioned in the seminar or the past one, but Colton was squatting 325 or something at Vic Barbell, this tiny venue, 5 spotters, super heavyweight, crowd is there. I think there was a technical controller too, photographer, like so many people everywhere. And I'm trying to move around, I'm trying to get a view of it. And I did not get a great view of it, but benefit of the doubt goes to the lifter in that scenario. So I gave it a white light. That is a good example of what you would see when you're shadowing. Obviously, you're trying to get up and find the best view, right? John gets up and finds the best view. Uh, you generally it just gives you an idea about the difference between theory and application, right? It's two very, very different things. Yeah, I forget where else I was trying to go with that. Yeah.
We have an update from Chris. He says if the jury has to deliberate and stop the competition, the next lifter gets 3 minutes compensatory time.
There you go. Did not know that.
Yeah, I don't know.
So if they're deliberating for a substantial amount of time, they like actively stop.
Oh yeah, they can stop the comp. The jury has all control over everything. They can kick refs out of the chair. They can use video review. They can.
But I think at Western,
can go
like,
wild.
when I went to the jury, I didn't see them like stop. They would just like discuss.
Yeah. Unless it's a big deal, they're probably not going to stop it.
Just thinking
We
about
had
how
two
that impacts,
trials going too.
yeah.
Same thing when I went to the jury there. They're just like, hey, move off to the side. Because while they're talking, they still have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were still doing it all.
Waiting on Chris.
Any other questions?
So with the shadowing,
Mhm.
are we shadowing 2 sessions, one with the side?
2 flights.
2 flights?
Yeah. It's got to be a session with 20 or more lifters. That's the same rule as what we use for the practical exam. It's got to be a session with 20 or more lifters, just so that way you get 2 flights. And for the shadow, it makes sense as well. So you can shadow the side and then the head for each discipline. Yeah. Anything else? Anything?
Chris says, I said, what about attempt time? Is that stop the 1 minute to get attempt in? That was terrible. I guess because if they're stopping in position, the timer is stopped.
Huh.
And he says, right, if they have to reload the bar, it's 3 minutes plus 1 total. So I think so, because they stopped the competition, right? Time is stopped.
You're like Doctor
Do you have a
Strange.
better way of asking them?
Chris,
But just in terms of the attempt.
yeah, so if someone, let's say, squat 100 kilos, they get a 2-to-1 call, reds. Lifter or coach is going to the jury. How much time do they now have to submit the attempt while the jury is deliberating? Like, let's say they overturn it to a good lift. Do I now get a minute to submit my new attempt? Or am I kind of out of luck and it just automatically jumps by 2.5?
Like when I was having Zach at Westerns.
Yeah.
Whatever, same thing. I got it overturned by the jury.
Yeah.
It was over a minute. It was still a minute.
That's what I usually find. In practice, I've found that they'll give you time. Or what I did was I just went and I submitted my attempt and then I ran over to the jury.
Yeah, Chris says yes, 1 minute. So I assume that's 1 minute from the decision.
That makes sense. That makes the most sense to me. All right, any questions? That's all I got. That's if you memorize, if you watch that video a few times, you should be fine.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Is there a way to make sure a ref is doing their job properly? Like, say a ref's consistently making bad calls, or they're clearly like.
I will deem them incompetent.
No, but it's seriously like. Like the person, right? They decide they don't like that person, right? For no reason other than, BS reasons. So, and they're making their calls based on that. Is their, recourse bullshit essentially being controlled by the head officiator? Is that the only person that can?
The jury can technically.
If there's no jury, let's just say it's a local meeting.
So you go to another province, you somehow get a membership, you live there. You're kind of out of luck. You're out of luck. You can't. I would say, yeah, you can't do anything. You, after the meeting's done, you can complain and see if the officiating chair will do anything, but I don't know why.
What province was
Yeah, like, so at bigger meets, like at internationals, every ref is from a different country to kind of make sure that doesn't happen, so like, you go to bench worlds, you'll have Japan, Canada, Spain with each ref, so kind of to make that not happen. That's also why I would argue you should only be able to set national records at nationals, and then those refs should be from different provinces. I think it's kind of weird you're allowed to set national records at provincials, because then you would just pump up. Referees could theoretically pump up their own province.
I've seen it.
Yeah, like,
Also, what if you go to the jury, you clearly had that call being made, the jury says more than once, and different attempts of your attempts, they weren't watching, we
screwed.
it's good.
It's annoying. It's very annoying, because that does, I know, that does happen. The jury will just straight up not be watching. Yeah.
So I guess this is out of the context of provincial referee, but for international referee, is there a language requirement? It's like, what if a lifter wants a certain style of handoff on the bench?
Oh, no. So I went to Panama for bench worlds, and I spoke to a guy in Spanish. You just deal with it. You deal with it. You think, like, you go to different countries, and you just go. You look at the guy giving handoffs. You go 1, 2, 3, up, or you go 1, 2. I'm serious. You either learn the language or because it's just like
Visual.
yeah, that's just the way it is. Or even at international meets, if you'll be warming up, and you'll be warming up with a Japanese guy, and a Korean guy, I don't know, a Mexican guy. None of them might speak English, and you'll just figure it out. It's a rough process. That is something that people don't realize when you're doing international meets. It's even the warm-ups are a test. Yeah, none of it's easy. Anyone else? Are we good?
Wait, I have a question. Are blue chip cookies still as good as when the sun was here?
Yes.
Old time?
Not quite.
All right, Jen.
Yeah, that's it.
All
No
right.
questions?
Unleash Brutus.
Thank you.